Hola my friends, this is Sal Montes and welcome back to my channel. I want to get started by saying I am so sorry I didn't get to release the reaction to the final week of the NHL season on Saturday like I promised. Sometimes life just happens, and honestly I didn't get a chance to work on the script until Saturday evening. But don't worry, if this video is coming out on Monday like I'm planning on, the other one should be coming out tomorrow morning hopefully. In the meantime though, the playoffs are finally here and I figured, hey, why not fill out my bracket and have you guys tag along? Now you might be thinking, Sal, you cover all 32 teams throughout the season, so surely you must know how each and every one of these series is going to play out, right? Well, I don't mean to brag, but this was my bracket from last year. Notice anything wrong with it? No, of course not. It's perfect, right? No, in all seriousness, here's a little behind the scenes for you all. The way I make my videos is basically I write daily notes for every single team on an Excel file. Once I have to make a video like the weekly reactions, I go back to those notes and basically write the jokes based on what I wrote down. The thing is, in order for me to not explode for covering all 32 teams, when information comes into my head, I process it, I use it in a video or whatever, and then it immediately goes out, never to be found again. Yeah, there's just way too much to retain, so if you ask me about a random game from 2 weeks ago, I could not tell you what happened, even if I reacted to it. So yeah, this bracket is just basically based on what I have left in my memory after this season, vibes, my personal feelings, I don't know, but it's gonna be fun either way, so let's jump right into it. Okay, so we're gonna get started with the Winnipeg Jets facing off against the St. Louis Blues. I'm actually recording this on Sunday, the day after the Winnipeg Jets won Game 1, so I already have kind of an idea of where I want to go with this series. I believe these two teams have been the best teams in the NHL since the Four Nations face-off, and while I do think it's going to be a very close series, I am going to give it to the Winnipeg Jets. Both teams are missing key players, with Winnipeg missing out on Ehlers and Velarde, while St. Louis doesn't have Dylan Holloway right now. Luckily for the Blues, Rob Thomas didn't get seriously injured in the last game of the regular season, so he is playing and looking pretty good. But Blues fans probably know by now that they just haven't had the best luck against Winnipeg as of late. Not only did Winnipeg win the regular season series, the kind of inconsistency against the Jets has been around for a couple of years now. So yeah, as cool as it would be to have St. Louis go on another 2019-like run, I don't think this is the year. Next, we have Colorado going to Dallas for round one, and ooh boy, this is not looking good for the Stars. I have been high on the Stars for I think the past 2 years or so, always picking them to go to the finals. And when they made the Rantanen trade this season, I thought they were a lock again. But on top of Rantanen not being able to perform as expected just yet, then have injuries to guys like Tyler Seguin, and more importantly, Miro Heiskanen, which considering the decor the Dallas Stars have been working around for the past year includes guys like Labushkin, Dumba, and Cody Ceci, is just not enough. And it's been made very clear during this last 7-game losing streak heading into the playoffs that the decor just cannot hold. Then you have guys like Jake Ottinger who have been kind of up and down for the last stretch of the season. And the final nail in the coffin for me was seeing Jason Robertson wearing a knee brace being ruled out week to week after game 82 of the season. Obviously, their forward group is pretty deep, and they did look pretty decent for most of Game 1 against Colorado. But I just think the Avalanche are a little bit healthier. They made more logical trades addressing certain key weaknesses like the goaltending, as we saw, which made a huge difference in Game 1. So for me, it is going to be a Colorado-Winnipeg second round, and I am really sorry to Dallas. Honestly, I wouldn't mind being wrong with this one. Then we have Minnesota, Vegas, and this is going to be a pretty easy Vegas win for me. You know, while everyone was talking about Washington and Winnipeg, even the Dallas Stars maybe catching up to the Jets for that #1 seed in the West, nobody was really talking about how the Golden Knights were just really consistent and they managed to clinch the third best record in the league. They split their last 2 games with a loss and then a win, but before that loss, they were actually on a 7-game point streak. A couple key guys like Pietrangelo have been looking a little rusty down the stretch, and you know, there's guys like Hurdle and Eichel who are recovering from a few injuries. But as magical as Game 82 was for the Wild, and as much as I would love to see Flower get his revenge against the Golden Knights in this series, I just don't think it's going to happen, and I think it's going to be the Vegas Golden Knights over the Minnesota Wild. Last first round series in the West, don't at me. No, but seriously, Kings, Oilers, I think this is going to be the Kings' year. Oilers are just way too banged up, and I think that the Kings are going to be able to finally overcome the demons of the first round against Edmonton and punch their ticket to round 2 against the Vegas Golden Knights. Or at least I hope. All right, for games, so we already discussed that Winnipeg and St. Louis is going to be a very tight series. I think if Holloway might be able to come back, I could see them going to 7. Colorado and Dallas, the same thing with Heiskanen maybe coming back. I also didn't touch on Landeskog, who could be returning for Colorado. Either way, I do think Dallas is going to put up a good fight, so I'm also going to say 7 for that. Vegas, Minnesota, I'll give the Wild 1 win. I would like them to win at least once, just for Flower, even if he doesn't play. And finally, Kings Oilers, I think is going to be another brutal, just hate-fueled matchup, and I think that the Kings are going to take it in 6, though. Hopping over to the East, we have the Battle of Ontario, which is actually starting in a couple minutes, so I really want to get this done quickly. And it's funny, every time these two teams have been in the playoffs, the Leafs have always beaten the Sens. But then this season, it was the Sens who swept the Leafs in all 3 games they played. I honestly like both teams, I really wouldn't mind it going either way. But I am going to give the edge to the Leafs for a couple reasons. One of the main things is goaltending, and while I think that if both teams are firing at full capacity, Allmark is probably the best goalie in the series. He has had instances where the team defense kind of lets him down a little bit, or maybe he's a little bit off his game, which I think presents an opportunity for the Leafs to take advantage of that. And God forbid the Sens got to throw out Anton Forsberg in there, because then I really don't think they have much of a chance. Whereas with Toronto, I really like Anthony Stolarz. I think he's been very consistent this season. And unlike previous years, if he were to go down and they had to play Joseph Woll, I also think they have a pretty solid confidence that he'll perform just fine. Add on top of that the fact that the Leafs do have a little bit more playoff experience than the Sens, I do think they'll be able to edge them out just a little bit. Although I'm sure the Sens are going to put up a massive fight, and I really hope that the fans get to enjoy this really fun series. Then we have the Battle of Florida, and I've heard more or less that the consensus is whoever comes out of this series is probably making the final and very likely to win the cup. They were fairly even in the regular season series this season. It's hard because the regular season series games were never that competitive. It was usually one team steamrolling the other. And while typically I think I would go for Tampa, I am going to go with the Florida Panthers because I gotta respect them as the Stanley Cup champions. And also, I don't think I can have both Edmonton and Florida out in the first round, so I gotta give it to one of them. Also, to make up for last year's very big mistake. But yeah, this win is going to depend on a lot of things, like Bob being in his A game, Carter Verhaeghe playing like playoff Carter Verhaeghe after having a pretty rough year, to be honest. Matthew Tkachuk, Aaron Ekblad coming back and being able to be a positive impact on this team. And also those acquisitions this year with Marchand and Jones needing to really step up. But yeah, we'll give Florida a shot in this one. Moving on, we have the Capitals and the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, both teams have been incredible stories this season, very enjoyable and fun to watch at times, but I think I'll give the edge to Washington. That's a pretty easy pick. Weirdly enough, I just feel like there's so much pressure on the Canadiens to perform well after, going 2-3 games below in their chance at punching their wildcard spot this past week. Of course, Washington has been in a slump as of late, dealing with maybe a post-Ovi record-breaking goal hangover. And while I do think Montreal has a lot of high-end talent, the Capitals should be getting Logan Thompson back within the first couple of games of the series. To me, he's a Vezina candidate along with, Connor Hellebuyck and Darcy Kemper, and I feel like he could be a major difference for this series, whereas Sam Montembeault has his moments, but I don't know if it's going to be the right time for him just yet. Or, I might be completely wrong and we might get a Conn Smythe performance from Ivan Demidov after all. And finally, we have the Devils in Carolina, who apparently just finished their first game and, yeah. I was very high on the Devils last summer when they got Jacob Markstrom, and apparently it was a really good trade because he tried his damnness to keep that team in the game today. But on top of having no Jack Hughes, they're also the road team going up against probably the best home team in the league aside from maybe the LA Kings. I've seen a couple people try to be Devils advocates and have them as potential spoilers for round one, but I just don't see it. I think they're going to have to regroup this season, get everyone healthy, especially Jack Hughes, and have a better plan to come at next season with. Now, games. I want 7 for the Battle of Ontario for sure. I think for the Battle of Florida, I think it's gonna be 6. Washington, Montreal. I'm gonna go with 6 because I think Montreal is gonna have a couple of fun games. I can't wait to see a playoff game at the Bell Center, even if it's just through the TV. And finally, we have Carolina, New Jersey. I'm gonna go with 5. Conference finals. So we have Winnipeg and Colorado meeting in the Central for the second round. Their offense is pretty well balanced, with the Jets having a slight edge on the goaltending mainly. I don't know if by this time the Jets will have Ehlers and Velarde back, or the Colorado Avalanche will have Gabe Landeskog in their lineup. But at the end of the day, I do think Colorado has a slight edge to them. My mind might change a little bit after seeing the St. Louis-Winnipeg series if I see that Connor Hellebuyck has really stepped up during the entire series. But I just can't help to think back to last season where he said he felt like he was playing the best hockey in his career, and it just wasn't enough. Like, the fact that you got outdueled by Alex Georgiev was already bad enough last season. But then this year, Colorado has Blackwood and Wedgwood looking pretty solid. Blackwood's playoff debut especially was amazing, and the main reason why the Avalanche were able to win Game 1 against the Dallas Stars. So yeah, while I don't think the Avalanche need Landeskog that bad, I do think the Jets will be missing Ehlers and Velarde by that point if they haven't come back. So yeah, Avalanche to the final. Moving on, we have Vegas against LA. And yeah, I don't know about this one. The Kings did come out on top in the regular season series, winning the last 3 games against Vegas this season. But on top of those wins being kind of close, it always felt like the Kings kind of took their foot off the gas by the end. And sometimes it really fell on the goaltending to carry them through these wins, while Vegas just came at them with onslaughts of hat tricks and goals. So that's why I'm very worried about the Kings in this series. I also feel like their series against Edmonton is going to be way more brutal, even if they come out on top. Whereas with Vegas, I don't think they're going to have as much of a hard time getting through the Wild. So as much as it breaks my heart, I think I'm going to have to go with Vegas for this one. Back over to the East, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs against the Florida Panthers. And oh my goodness, here we go again. And while I'm sure the entire psychological factor is probably going to be present in favor of the Panthers, I would really want to see the Leafs kind of overcome their demons for this one. They would be getting a bit of revenge from 2 years ago when the Panthers beat them also in round 2 on the road to the Stanley Cup Final that year. But getting to beat former Boston Bruins captain, now Florida Panther Brad Marchand, who has been a thorn on the Leafs side for so many years, that would be just such a fun storyline on their way to their first conference final in forever. Which of course would mean the end of the title defense for the Florida Panthers, but at that point I would just think that the guys that I mentioned earlier in the video maybe weren't able to pull their weight as much as they needed them to. So I could see the Florida Panthers losing in round 2. This one I'm also pretty excited to watch as well because the last couple of meetings between the Capitals and the Hurricanes have gotten pretty heated. I mean, the Chatfield takedown on McMichael a couple games ago was pretty gnarly, so while I know that Chatfield did end up fighting someone on the Caps their next game, I do think there's going to be lots of bad blood between these two teams heading into round 2. Like with the Montreal series, I think Logan Thompson being back for the Washington Capitals is going to be a key factor for determining this series. But if either Freddie Anderson or Kochetkov are able to hold their ground just enough, I do think that the Carolina Hurricanes are going to end up eliminating the Capitals and ending their magical season. Obviously, nobody expected the Capitals to be this good this season, and many of them counted them out, like myself. They have had great wins against great teams all season long, but I think that the Carolina Hurricanes are just the more hardened playoff team at this point. And while we had that entire Rantanen fiasco, there were other acquisitions of Taylor Hall, Logan Stankoven, and Mark Jankowski. I think they've all been seamless fits for this team, and I would expect them all to show up and send the Caps home by the second round. All right, we have arrived at the conference finals, and in the West, we have Colorado versus Vegas. It's really funny between these two because while Colorado won the regular season series 2-1, both wins came in the shootout, and the one game they lost to the Vegas Golden Knights, it was by a score of 8-4 at the beginning of the season. But I do believe at that time, Colorado was dealing with quite a few injuries and having to play a bunch of, AHL players making their NHL debuts. Whereas Vegas, aside from, a pretty bad, I think, January, was pretty pretty consistently good this season. You know, once we get to this point, I feel like they're pretty much coin flips, but for some reason, I'm kind of riding with Colorado all the way to the final. I just think by that point, they'll really start to benefit from all their trades they made this season, whether it be Brock Nelson or Marty Necas. But yeah, I think the Colorado Avalanche are making it all the way to the final this season. As for Vegas, maybe I'm being a little petty because I do think they're going to beat the Kings, and after that, I just don't want them to win anymore. Eastern Conference Final, I'll be completely honest with you, when I wrote down my notes for this video, I actually had the Florida Panthers over the Toronto Maple Leafs. I just changed my mind for some reason, and spoilers, I did have the Florida Panthers beating the Carolina Hurricanes and heading to the Stanley Cup Final. But seeing this breakdown now, are we gonna do it? I think I'm gonna do it. So yeah, screw it. I'll go Leafs to the final, facing off against the Colorado Avalanche, and the Avalanche are gonna win, in my opinion. I think the Colorado Avalanche has both the star power and enough depth to clinch the Stanley Cup this season. For a team with so much turnover after so many trades made, it's amazing that the Colorado Avalanche have clicked so well. And yeah, I know by the end of the season, some guys like Necas and Lehkonen weren't doing too much. But if you've beaten Dallas, Winnipeg, and Vegas at that point, which along with Colorado make up the top 4 teams in the Western Conference, I just feel like at that point the team is going to be rolling, whereas Toronto will have a really cool storyline making it to the final. But with this being relatively new grounds for the Leafs, I do think that the advantage is going to swing over to the Avalanche, and they'll be taking home their second Stanley Cup in the past 3 years. So yeah, this is my full bracket right here. Is it going to be 100% accurate? Duh. But in all seriousness, I'm awful at picking these things all the time, so I just like doing them because they're pretty fun to do. And I hope y'all had a good time doing it along with me. So yeah, please stay tuned for more playoff content coming up as I do reactions for all of the series once they're over. So yeah, leave a like, subscribe, go down to the comments and let me know how wrong I am about all of these picks. And yeah, thank you for watching, and as always, remember that kindness is free to give, so go out and spread some today.